There we go. Good evening, everybody. It's the Gin and Tonic Show, and I've got a clock here, which for some odd reason is out by like 1.5, almost 2 minutes. It's unbelievable. So thank God I've got other clocks to compare it to. So good evening. Welcome to the Gin and Tonic Show with welcome Rob. Where is Thunder today? Thunder Jew. Welcome, Rob. How's it going?
Good evening. Good evening to everybody who's listening. And yeah, it's going okay. As I said to you before the show, doing a water cleanse. So just drinking water, about 5 liters of water for the day. So regular visits to the loo for a cleanse. Since we're at home, we might as well do that. So otherwise, all good. Nobody's ill here. Hopefully it's all good your side.
Yeah, everything's okay. No crown or corona or anything. Before we start, I'd just like to just take a moment and just remember a guy I've known for I don't know how many centuries, and this is DPR, a guy who died about a month ago, and it's now official, and the next of kin have now released the news, so it's okay to just remember him. He was a great guy. He was full of fun. He was always joking. I mean, he pranked me lots of times, all right? So, and sometimes he'd get on my nerves. Yes, I freely admit that. But I still appreciated him. He was a lawyer. He was somebody who played a big role, like, I don't know, 10, 12 years ago, when there was a very young Christian apologist called Venom Fanix. I don't know if people still remember this. And he had quite a following because he was quite brash and he was young and hip and everything. And then he started collecting money for some orphanage, and it turns out that he bought himself a new car, a new guitar, a new hi-fi, new things like that. And this was a big scandal. And then DPR stepped in, but not as a lawyer, not as a prosecutor, but as a mediator. And he went to the guy and he said, listen, we need to do something. He went to the parents, and this was over in the US or Canada or something. And he actually went to see the parents and said to them, look, this is the situation. Your son's life can be destroyed if he continues like this. He's a juvenile at the moment, but if he continues like this with his scam, he is going to get prosecuted. So anyway, they made amends and everything was sorted. So this was great. And this is how I remember DPR, and for some odd reason, it seems I'm one of the last people that he spoke to, and it's quite sad to see how people who are relatively young, who just, I mean, I was thinking, have I reached the age now where all I get to do when we meet friends is discuss who was the latest one to die, and we're talking only about illness and things like that. So yeah, this is one of these things. So anyway, DPR is sorely missed. He's, by the way, a founder of the Magic Sandwich Show. And this Magic Sandwich Show is what inspired the Gin and Tonic Show. So DPR is, to a certain extent, responsible for us being here today. So this is just a short memory, just a short trip down memory lane, in favor of somebody who I value highly and I think is a great loss for us.
And yeah, I never met him myself. And this is the message on his YouTube channel. It's the last video that was posted, which was yesterday. And so there's the message there. And they say raise a glass in honor. So let's just have a quick look here. So Richard was a much-loved son, brother, friend. He was incredibly bright and funny and quietly ironic in a very witty way. Richard's family and friends think of it to be appropriate and generous gesture to create a tribute video to Richard in the style of the Raise a Glass video that was created for Christopher Hitchens. If you'd like to help us celebrate Richard's life by raising a glass or by making a personal statement, we'd be delighted, as we've just done there. Let's just have a quick look at this video here. I don't know if you can hear this. Oh, these are just
very short clips.
Yes, those are just short clips to Hitchens. So I guess that's our short one for DPR. I didn't know him personally, but I certainly knew of him on the Magic Sandwich Show, and that recently started again. So I'm sure he'll be missed. And as you said, you knew him personally. So let's raise a glass in honor of him and remember that life is precious, and especially now with what's happening in the world today. So I only have water, but I'm raising my water glass to you, DP, wherever you may be.
It's appreciated. The thing is that we actually went and participated in his charity drive because he raised money for Médecins Sans Frontières, the Doctors Without Borders. And this is the kind of guy that he was. And he donated a lot of money to, to charity and things like that. So he organized things like that. And I remember Kling and I, as Gin and Tonic Show, we had 1 hour to entertain people and to drive charity up and get people to donate. So, so there's a lot of interaction between DPR and us. And so there you go. Here's to DPR.
And thanks in the channel as well. So there we go.
Okay. So welcome to the Gin and Tonic Show. Welcome to the chat. Welcome to people listening. Remember that you can listen live on YouTube and on Facebook. And if you want to, you can watch it later as well. You can comment live in the chat, or you can come and join us here on the panel if you want to contribute something. Just remember, this is a free speech zone. Now, having said that, I need to explain that on Facebook today, I deleted a post by somebody on the free speech group in Facebook because it had nothing to do with free speech. This was somebody who was actively propagating that Islamic teaching was that come and C-U-M-M-I-N, I think it is, seeds actively work against Corona. Now, and for me, this is where free speech ends. Okay, this for me, this is my limit. If somebody goes and intentionally damages other people, that has nothing to do with free speech. And this is why I deleted this, and I do not care if people now accuse me of being a hypocrite, that I am the one who's always clamoring for free speech, and then I go and delete a post. I don't care, because for me, that is nothing to do with free speech. That is deliberately causing harm for others or to others, and that's why I deleted it. So I don't think I'm being a hypocrite. I don't think I'm being false or two-faced or anything about this. I think this is just my personal limit, and I think I'm entitled to have that. If you come and join us, then we talk about Islam, and we focus on Islam because we know more about Islam than we do about other things. And that is why we address Islam. We critique Islam. We look at the different bad ideas of Islam and point them out. We expose them. Now, that doesn't mean that we attack individuals. We do not attack Islam. We don't attack Muslims. We try and use facts, reality, and reasoning, knowing that there is a difference between the human being, the Muslim, and the ideology, Islam. And that is what we try and do. We try and stay within the region of the Quran, what the Quran says, what the bad ideas are that are being described in the Quran, that are being commanded in the Quran, that are being expected to be taken seriously from the Quran. And that is what we address. Now, while we try and stay factual, we do, well, there's a possibility that we make mistakes. So if you want to correct us, go ahead. If you want to criticize us, go ahead. If you want to comment, go ahead. Like I said, you can either do this live in the chat or on the panel, or later on in the video. So that's us. That's what we do. We have a theme of the month where we had some lectures from James Speaker's Corner. We had input from various sources. And today is the last installment or last episode when we are going to be dealing with prophecies. So far what we've done is we've defined what a prophecy is, Then we've looked at some examples what prophecies would be, or what would be considered to be a prophecy. And then we looked at some examples of what we are being given by Muslims, by apologists, what they think prophecies are. And so far we have established there is not a single prophecy out of all the ones that we've been shown in the Quran that we are aware of up until now. So if anybody does have something that they would think is or would constitute a prophecy, please let us know. I'm very curious and I'm very open. With that, we go to the first section, which is the news. I've got 1, 2, 3. Yeah, carry on.
Oh, stop. Just before you do, here, let me just share very quickly here if I can. Here's a picture just for those who didn't know who DPR Jones is. Is that coming up on the screen?
Oh, it was Aaron Ra. Yeah, he was in the
Yes.
States, and then Aaron Ra actually came to the UK and stayed with him.
So this here is DPR Jones on the left here. This is Aaron Ra. He's quite well familiar. Floyd FP is quite a knowledgeable atheist, has done many debates online as well. So that's what he looks like for those who may have ever seen him on Magic Sandwich Show. So again, raising a glass to him. Thanks for that.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, and with that we turn to the news of the week, and it's and it's not only about Corona. You know, I mean, it's incredibly difficult to get anything which is not related to Corona at the moment. But here, this is quite funny because Muslims. Okay, this is not news. This is my quip, all right? Because Muslims. No, sorry, I read this. This is something I read. This is not from me. No. Sorry, I can't.
Can you share screen on it, or is it?
No. It's just one sentence.
Oh, okay.
It's something that I read, and I wish I could take credit for it because I think it's incredibly clever. Muslims are waiting for the non-believers to develop a vaccine against the coronavirus so that they can go back to Mecca and pray to Allah to destroy the non-believers. So Muslims are waiting for non-believers to develop a vaccine against the virus so that they can go back and pray to Allah to destroy the non-believers. So that next time around, there's going to be no more non-believers to save them from the virus. So I think that's so ironic. This is such a, I don't know, it appeals to my sense of humor.
Yes.
A real item.
Yeah, it's funny, isn't it? But no praying. But this would be one of those opportunities where, prayer could be put to the test. If all the Muslims went to, Mecca and prayed, and they either never got the virus or they had the virus and it instantly healed, we'd sort of investigate and go, how come it is, and especially if everybody else was doing the same thing, and it was only Muslims that were praying and getting instantly healed, and we could monitor it and test it and immediately see that. That would be something worth investigating, right? That would be, okay, so now here's prayer that there seems to be a correlation between the prayer that they're making and people being instantly healed. That would be worth, investigating. But of course, as we know in the real world, not the make-believe world, none of that ever happens. So they have to rely on Western medicine, or not even Western medicine, but just medicine or naturalistic cures rather than any prayers.
Yeah, and I took a photo of some Muslims praying and Buddhists or monks, or some monks making face masks. And I said, look, this is the difference, okay? Here's people actually doing something and helping the community, helping people to stay safe and to stay healthy. And here you have Muslims who are coming together, doing the exact opposite, praying together. And this is the terrible thing. And this is why I'm actually quite happy that they closed Mecca, because, you would have people from different parts of the world coming together to Mecca, which would be the perfect breeding ground for this kind of a virus. And then they would go back with their infection and they would go back to whatever country they came from. And that would be exactly what a virus would love. And this is why I'm very happy that they closed Mecca. But the reality is that a lot of Muslims are praying. And there are actually calls to keep the mosques open. Because they want to pray to Allah to stop the virus. And this is the most stupid things that you can do. And this is why the second item, welcome Thunderous. Why are you late? What are you doing? Why can't you? What is wrong with you? There's no football, so you don't have an excuse.
I was playing video games with one of my nephews online, and I just lost track of time. And then I looked at the phone and thought, "Oh my word, I need to leave." So I apologise for everybody for being late. I certainly apologise to my panelists. I do apologise for that. But I'm here now, so forgive me. I've missed
Good evening.
The show, so I'm going to have to join blind, as it were. And please continue.
Good evening to you. I hope you're well.
Muslims Puedo Science Buster.
Oh, sorry, I spelled it incorrectly. It's supposed to be Pseudo Science Buster.
Right.
It's the brandy in my hand. I'm drinking a glass of brandy.
Well, I finally got a new keyboard. Rob, you're going to be very happy to hear it. It doesn't make this clamoring noises, clack, 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 clack. It's very soft keyboard now. I love this because you just go, as soon as you go near it, it lights up, you know. I don't know how long the battery's going to last, but it's wonderful.
As long as it lasts the show, right? You have to put a new one in for each show.
Okay, we're talking about prayer. We're talking about the coronavirus. We're talking about nonsense. We're talking about ancient superstitions and how they can influence people today in the year 2020. A Muslim Brotherhood activist of Egyptian origin based in New York, United States, made a video urging his followers to infect the enemies with coronavirus and said that God will be helping them if they work properly. Now, this is a guy called Bekat Saber, who has 144,000 followers on Facebook, vowed that if he gets sick with coronavirus, he will go to the Egyptian consulate in New York to infect everyone he can. And then he urges followers who are sick with coronavirus or any flu to purposefully meet the government and intelligence officials, police and military officers to infect them. This is crazy. If anybody doesn't believe this, it's millichronicle.com. I don't know if I need to put the link in somewhere, because I've actually kept the link because this is so unbelievable that I was speechless when I read this. It's unbelievable for me.
Yeah, but this is what, some crazy Muslims will do. Again, it's not all, but certainly some crazy ones. And where did he get that idea from? He'll no doubt point to some scripture.
Wow. Yeah. Anyway, this is
when you're talking like that, you have to bear in mind certain passages of the Quran that we've read thus far. And one of the go-to ones, because it's in our recent discussions, is where Muhammad was arguing with people that didn't go to a battle with reference to those who stayed at home, and basically said, well, no matter what your fate was, whether it was to die or to live, it doesn't matter where you were at that moment in time, you would have either lived or died. So the fact that you lived is that you should have come to the war, and you would have been a partaker of the war. Because if you're going to die, you're going to die anyway, whether it was at the war or at home. So when you're talking about the coronavirus, from the Muslim mindset, it would be, well, if they're going to die, they're going to die anyway. At that moment in time, whether it's a coronavirus or by an accident or by whatever means, like a heart attack, they're going to die at that moment anyway. So what difference does it make? But my counter argument to that is, well, what difference does it make if you spread the coronavirus then? What difference does that make? Because either way, whether you spread coronavirus or not, they're going to die or not anyway. So coronavirus is irrelevant to that, because Allah is going to demand that soul at any one time that He's ordained, and the angel will be there present whether to take it or not. Simple as.
Yeah.
Look how stupid this is. Ali Dawa did a video with him roaming the streets of London, praying in a doorway to show his piety in the face of the virus. Oh boy. Well, as long as we have people like that, I mean,
that's like you say, though, Stops. That sort of thing. That's certainly going against not just it's a government requirement now. It's not just please would you stay at home. I mean, the police are going around, and I heard from a family member in South Africa, they've locked down South Africa as well, and they have the army on the streets there. And it probably might not take too long for that to happen here if people don't, heed this warning.
Well, just from the South African point of view, I think with South Africa, they're a lot more impoverished than, say, Europeans are. So if you put a lockdown there, their if you like, larders will not be as furnished or as comfortably stocked as, say, people in the European countries are going to be, because they don't have the financial resources in order to store their larders, as it were. So I could see why the military will be there. And also, if you don't mind me saying, I think other nations are a lot more social than what we are. The Europeans tend to isolate themselves a little bit more than what, say, Africans or Asians do. They're a lot more social in their social etiquettes and behavior. So it's hard to keep social creatures that are culturally social isolated in their own homes. So so there's two, for me, when I look at what you're saying there, Rob, about South Africa, because I watched that as well, I'm looking at it from 2 points of view. One, they don't have the resources to store their larders. That means they're going to be out. Two, they're social creatures. They don't want to be locked inside all day. I mean, look how beautiful South Africa is. Look at the weather they have. Why would you want to be stuck at home all day? How could you be stuck at home all day? The natural inclination of the human being is to be out. It's a lot more easier in Europe because, one, we don't have the weather, and even if we did have the weather, we tend to be a little bit more antisocial.
Yeah, plus they don't get all the news, etc. But anyway, I mean, it's the whole point of this is a serious disease and people are dying and getting easily affected. And either people don't know about it, which, that's possible that you don't know about it, or they're just not taking it seriously. Somebody like Ali Dawa, right? So, and that's a danger to society, somebody doing that sort of thing. Why doesn't he go and visit a corona hospital, pray to Allah, breathe in the droplets of somebody else, and if he catches the virus and gets cured from prayer, then we've got something to work with. And if he doesn't, well, there's one less dimwit on the planet.
No, it doesn't work that way. They think they do, but this is this ancient superstition. This is this built-in delusion where people think that there is something that will make them immune. There's something that there's like a bubble or some sort of layer around them, which is being prepared or provided by their Allah, which is making every virus sort of bounce off. And that doesn't work.
The thing is, the irony is, Muhammad did, according to the Quran, Muhammad did not have any miracles. So and neither did the first 3 generations of Islam, which was supposed to be the purest form of Islam, as far as Muslim followers are concerned. Why, several hundred years later, well, more than 1,000 years later, does Ali Dawa think that Allah's going to give him a miracle that he did not give Muhammad or the first 3 generations of Islam?
But he's not the brightest, is he? He doesn't think like that.
No, we can't accuse him of having, yeah.
Okay, it's actually quite amazing, really. This coronavirus is, I don't know, it's showing the best in people, but it's at the same time showing the worst, because there is so much compassion going out. There are so many creative ideas on how to help out, how to do things, and how to be there for others, and yet on the other hand, you get so much stupidity and so much. I mean, it's really sick how people would be. Where was this? This was in Nairobi, where somebody ordered masks and gloves and the so-called PPE, this personal protection equipment, and people stole this to sell on the black market. Somebody bought up, I don't know, 5 million protective masks and is selling them at a profit just to make a quick buck of this. This also brings out the worst in some people, So I see both sides. Okay, finally, according to Punch magazine in Nigeria, a Muslim leader says that the corona. Thunder, could you mute this, because I don't know why I'm getting so much feedback from your microphone. Thanks. Says that the coronavirus is a Western hoax to keep Muslims from practicing Islam. Now, if any who heed his words and then contract the coronavirus, no one will blame this idiot. They'll just assume that they were not pious enough to please Allah. So he says, virus is a lie, and that's it. And people believe him.
But that's the sort of person you want to put his actions where his mouth is. By all means, go to the nearest hospital and contract this, and then tell everybody that it's not the case.
I've tried.
Of course, they won't, right? And yeah, it was you, and it was somewhere else, right? It happened not just with the Muslims; it happened with some other guy that we talked about. Who was it? It was famous. It was on YouTube. I can't remember who it was. It was something about. It escapes me now. About drinking some water or other. And the interviewer had the water there. This guy was saying, no, there's, I don't know if it's acidic water. It was some sort of water. I don't know if this rings a bell, Stops. But I don't know if it was a flat earther or if it was somebody who was making some sort of claims or other. And the interviewer famously had, and he said, here's the water. Please drink some. He said, no, you're crazy. That would be suicide or something like that. Yeah, that's the sort of thing that's going on, right?
There are several of these. I mean, there's one guy who says, yeah, nothing can harm him. He says, okay, here, I've got a glass of urine, drink the urine. I mean, it was water with some yellow ink in it. But then, of course, then they shy away. I mean, I've got lots of people on YouTube, on Facebook, who are saying, yeah, this helps, and if you recite this, then you are safe, and you can use this against the virus. And I said, okay, well, I will infect you with, you eat or do or recite or whatever, I will infect you with HIV and with polio, and let's see what happens. And then one guy said, yeah, but that's suicide. I said, yeah. Oh man, you can't make this up. I don't know how people go through life, how people actually manage this. It's unbelievable. I don't know how this works. Really, I have no idea how somebody can read a hadith and say, well, Muhammad said that if there's a disease on one side of the wing and the other wing has the cure for it, or whatever disease there is, Allah has a cure. And then they go and they read this ayat al-Kursi, and they write something on their shirts, and then they think, so this protects them. And they actually believe this. Now, we have a crisis. How many people? Imagine if we had another billion people, a billion minds available to work on this problem, to go and experiment, to go and help the people to to develop a vaccine. Instead of which they're thinking how best to pray, how best to do absolutely nothing, but to just sit on their knees and look up. They're not allowed to look up at the sky, to just look pious, and then say, oh, we are helping. No, you are not. You are doing the exact opposite. So imagine you had a billion people who are not Muslims, another billion who are not Christians, and they would be actively involved in looking, actively involved in researching. That would be fucking amazing. I mean, we would have this licked in a couple of weeks. Instead of which, we have half the world's population, thinking of some god or other, of angels and stuff like that. It's sad, really. It's sad.
Yeah, just for a moment, I've got the copy of that video here. So if I just quickly share screen here for a moment, hopefully we can hear this, just for interest here. It's just a few seconds here. Hopefully you can see this and hear it. So this is the guy that says, GMO advocate says Monsanto's Roundup, which is a product that's supposed to kill pesticides, is safe to drink. So here's what he's saying.
Tell the truth.
It's not dangerous to humans. No, it's not.
So you're ready to drink one glass of
No, I'm not an idiot.
The clip is being shared widely. Headlines like these, the man being interviewed, Patrick Moore, is not a lobbyist for Monsanto, the makers of Roundup. He is, however, known for controversy.
So there we go. That's when somebody is asked to put their mouth where their money is, money where their mouth is, should I say. Oh, the thunderous dropped off.
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, there's that. So I thought I'd just bring that up because I did see that a while ago. So there we go. And that's the sort of thing that potentially that Muslim fellow is saying. in a similar way.
Yeah, but there's so many. There are so many of them who are saying the very, very same thing. And I don't know why they do that. Because it's so easy to catch them out. It's so easy to say, well, then go and show me. And of course they can't.
Yeah.
And this is what I find annoying, because as the audience and as the panel knows, I have a God belief when we talk about miracles. You'll notice that the fake Christian denominations that sort of like persist in saying that miracles are real and they believe in miracles and such, you're finding exactly the same traits in the religion of Islam now, where miracles and such things. But you'll notice it's never, my argument against such beliefs is that you never see prosthetics. You never see a blind man, seeing again. You never see people who've lost teeth having their teeth replaced. You never see sort of people with missing limbs having limbs appear. It's all sort of like a matter of faith. And if it didn't work, it's because you lacked faith. So when limb or something like that does appear and doesn't get cured of their ailment, particularly a physical one, because it's always something that you can't see, like cancer or back pain or constant headaches or an OCD. You just have to take the person's word for it. But something more objectional, and it doesn't happen, the miracle doesn't work, then the blame lies on the person who was ill in the first place, because they lacked the faith for the miracle to take place. And that's what really annoys me, because Islam is following the same traits as false Christianity now.
Yeah, you heard the guy. If you are infected, then it's your fault because you were not pious enough.
Or they lacked faith. And the irony is, well, what a measure of faith did they have to turn up in the first place? If they turned up in the first place, that by definition shows they had a measure of faith.
I mean, how are you supposed to know? I wrote a little story now that if somebody asked me again, I have been infected by a god, the great Sukul, and he has written a book, the Suku, and in the Suku he describes how the universe is created and how he says all the previous books, like the Torah, like the Bible and the Quran, have all been superseded. And this is now, the Suku is the latest work, and this is the final of the finals. He thought he would have a final, but then he saw that people are not adhering to his wishes. He issued in the Quran, so he came back, and now he's delivering the final, the FF final. So there you go. And there it says you need to blindly agree and blindly worship, and then everything is going to be okay. Will a Muslim believe me? I doubt it. Let's take a look at the Quran. Let me close this. If I close this, we get more on the screen. Can I get more? Chunk, 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 chunk. I think we were on sentence 100.
That's 4:100, right?
Can you read this?
Barely. It's pretty small. Anybody on a mobile
what
phone won't
happens
be able
if
to
I
see
go
it.
full screen? Can I go full screen? No, I can't. Yes, I can. No, this is you.
You can, you can make
hang
the
on.
text
If
bigger.
I make this, if I do this, how's that?
That's getting better, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, there you go.
So we are in chapter 4, and it's sentence number 100 out of 279. Was it 276? No, 79. Migrants will prosper. Those who die will get a reward once they're dead. Now, these are sentences, okay, which in the Quran, this is my personal interpretation of what I have read. So if I go and read the sentence in the Quran, of course, it looks very different. So, but I don't want to go through each and every sentence. If somebody wants to know more or whatever, we can stop here and quickly discuss this. But I don't want to do the same thing what we did half a year ago, where we spent like half an hour on one sentence dissecting it. I don't think it warrants that much attention. So this is just to show people we are reading the Quran. We are conveying the contents and the meaning of the individual sentences and showing people what to expect when they read the Quran. That's the whole point. If somebody is interested, they can spend time on this, they can go deeper, and I will always suggest that people go and research for themselves and go and look at what these sentences actually mean. There's a lot of tafsir, in other words, the exegesis available. So if anybody wants to know something, it's very easy to get. So migrants, in other words, those who leave, they will prosper. And those who die will get a reward once they're dead. And 101, when you fight, you can speed pray. That means that if you don't have time to pray because you're fighting, because a lot of the Quran is about fighting and war, and then it gives you all sorts of instructions or whatever, or how to adapt to this condition. So here you can speed pray. In other words, you can shorten the prayer so that you can be ready to fight. And
it's a bit of an odd one, though, isn't it? Because it does say in that particular one, there's no blame on you if you shorten the prayers, for fear unbelievers may attack you, for the unbelievers are unto you open enemies. But if you were doing a prayer and you were being pious and you died being pious, surely that would get you to heaven quicker and you'd be with Allah. So why would you want to shorten your prayers to defend yourself? Because what is more pious? I guess you'd have to ask a Muslim, what's more pious, praying to Allah or defending yourself?
You have to certainly ask serious questions why Allah would want you to go to a place of holy ground, as it were, a moment where you're supposed to be communing with God, but you have to go there tooled up. I mean, this is why when you look at certain images now in today's news, you see people praying, when you have their camera shots of Muslims that are rebellious or freedom fighters, whatever pseudonym or synonym you want to use, but they're praying and they've got their Kalashnikov or their AK-47 next to them. What kind of image?
Exactly.
I tell you, what kind of image? And they're following this ayah here to do that. But what image is that saying to the world when Islam continuously tries to tell us this is a religion of peace? But this goes back for me when we go back to what I've already said earlier on, when Allah turned around, when Muhammad is trying to reason with people, well, if you stayed at home or if you go to war, what difference does it make? You're going to die or going to live anyway. So what difference does it make then? Because if the kuffar turn up at your place of worship and they attack you, whether you live or whether you die is irrelevant, because you were going to die that day or not anyway. And second of all, why can't Allah protect his place of worship? Why would he let the kuffar come to his place of worship and allow that kind of mischief take place? I use the term
interrupt the prayer. Exactly.
Yeah. While they're talking to him. Can he not protect people while they're talking to him?
Exactly. And this is another illogical thing. And by the way, I'm really trying to get through this quicker than last time so that we have some time at the end for questions and interaction with panel. So if you have questions, I don't know if you can write them down or save them for later or something. But just this is one of the things I've addressed, because I made a series, which I need to continue, where I'm showing logical flaws in the ideas in the Quran. And this is one of them. Why is it that Allah needs us to carry an angel on each shoulder? I don't know if everybody knows that in the prayer, at the end of the prayer, you have to go look at left and right and greet the angel, because you have one sitting on the left, one on the right, one looking at the good, one at the bad deeds that you are doing, and they are recording everything. Okay, so everything is being recorded in advance by the pen. Everything that is going to happen is known already by Allah. Everything that is going to happen in your life is already known by the angel on the 42nd day of the pregnancy. And then each person has 2 angels recording everything, and these are duplicated. So in the end, I don't know, I can't remember, I think it was 12 angels that you have floating around you, all doing different things, looking at what you are doing, watching you all the time. And this is one of the logical flaws that you have in Islam, which immediately kills the entire concept of Islam. If you have an all-knowing God, and yet he needs to have, well, everything is written down in the book already, and then he still needs to have angels sitting there on your shoulder. So anything if just logical thinking already shows you that it cannot be correct. It cannot be true. It cannot reflect reality. It's impossible. So,
And if you add on that, in one of the hadith, Muhammad says that 123,999 prophets have gone before him. So let's look at that logically in the stream of time as far as religion is concerned. If you look at the Hindu religion, they have the principle of reincarnation via karma. So your next life is determined by what life you lived previously. So if you lived a good life, your next life logically dictates that you will have a blessing, that in the next life you'll live a better life. Likewise, if you did some sins in one life, your next life will be wretched. If that's the case, then what this is supposed to be from the same God. So logic would dictate that your previous life or your next life or subsequent lives after, either good or bad, right or wrong, left or right, have been dictated by the same God that turns around and says that that's the reason why you committed those sins in that life in the first place. That doesn't make sense. And then when this is supposed to be yet again the same God as the Hebrew God, the Hebrew God in Malachi 3:16 says he notifies himself all the things that you do that are good. And that's further reinforced in the book of Hebrews, I think, around about chapter 10. So there's an inconsistency that is totally different when it comes to Islam. Yet it's supposed to be the same God. Yet the perversions that Islam claims for the same God have no substance or evidence behind them to confirm it. So this further sort of reinforces to me that when you read in what you're talking about there, the angel on the left and the angel on the right, and Allah knows this, that, and the other from the moment you're born, and he sends down an angel, just further proves that this is not an Abrahamic religion. This is a pagan religion that has a superficial grafting of Abrahamic theism. If that makes sense.
Okay, now look at this. How can somebody do this? We just, you've explained it, Rob has explained it, I've explained it, and then you get this. So you can't say God is unjust. I mean, for crying out loud, aren't you listening? We just said, how is it possible that God knows everything in advance, everything has been written, everything, and then you need the angels doing something that is already known? We're talking about the logical inconsistency here. Okay, let's go to the next sentence.
Sorry, just interruption. But we're talking about unjust. But was it not last week we talked about Allah was going to give fresh skins to those who were in hell, so that they can taste pain all over again? Where's the justice in that?
It's childish. Chapter 4, sentence 101. When you're praying, half can pray, half can stand guard. And then they swap. And then atheists want to attack Muslims. So keep your weapons ready, except if it rains. But atheists will be punished. Now, this is a whole long sentence, okay? So that's just... Okay, 103, pray. And then afterward, you're finished, you think of your God. When you are safe, you need to pray some more. And if you can't pray, or if you are late, think of your God. This is an alternative suggestion. So the one says, because this sentence is very unclear. So the one says it means pray and then think of your God. And the other one says, if you can't pray or if you are late, then think of your God. And when you are safe, then pray. So these are alternative versions of the same sentence because people can't agree on what they're actually saying.
I think as well, when you're reading about when you're praying, make sure your tools up and swap prayers in case you get attacked. I think you have to look at these ayah as well and see that there's an underlying sowing of discontent between the Muslim and the non-Muslim, so that the Muslim is therefore subconsciously trained not to trust a non-Muslim.
Yeah, of course. And this is, I think, reflected in 104. Don't stop fighting the atheists. You and them, you both suffer, but you have hope. They don't. This is how easy it is. So even if you're suffering, you're still better off than those non-believers. Those, I don't know if they're pagans or anyway, they're not Muslims, right? And in 105, it says the Quran is true and use it as yardstick for morality. This is how you judge others. You use the Quran. So in other words, making love is like a reason to stone somebody to death. But to go and rape a sex slave, that's moral. Come on. How can you use the Quran as a yardstick, as a tool to judge others, to judge their morality? You can't.
But you have to bear in mind, thus far, how much of it has been a book? And it's not a book, it's just a rare recitation. So it's not a book in any sense. And even if you want to use that term, how much of the book has been revealed thus far? So far, it's just a few pages or a few paragraphs. It isn't a book. So it's not a book. And when you're talking about morality, first of all, you have to define what the law is. Thus far, we've not read no law. The only thing that we've read so far that you could perceive as a law is follow Muhammad and follow Allah, otherwise you go to hell. Simple as. There is no explanation as to what is right and wrong. For instance, going back to, say, another religion where you may have the Mosaic law or the law of Christ, or maybe Zoroastrianism, there would be some kind of laws as to what's right and wrong from there as an objective set of rules that are objectively made as far as morality is concerned. Islam has provided nothing thus far. All you've got is a few recitals repeated in parrot fashion, said in like a poetic prose, but the main context thus far is men can have what they want, do what they want, as far as women are concerned, as far as war is concerned, but you must obey Allah and His Messenger. And if you do not, you're a dirty kuffar, and there is going to be tension between the kuffar and Muhammad. Follow Muhammad for whatever he says, and if not, you're going to go to hell, and it's a nasty place, which is a repeated pattern about the nasty place. Where is the law so far? Where is the objective set of morality and rules thus far? We've not read any, and thus far it certainly is not a book.
Well, there are some laws. Of course, you're allowed to have 4 women.
That's not
You're
a
allowed
law.
to beat them.
Privilege. That's not a law. That's a privilege. That's a concession. That's a bonus. That's war booty. And I say booty not in the sense of Beyonce.
There are some laws which, number one, is you can have 4 wives, but you need to pay for them. That's a law.
That's a business transaction. Is it law when I go to Waitrose? Is it law when I go to Waitrose and I buy a loaf of bread and I pay for it? Is that law or a business transaction?
It's both.
I'm obeying the law if I don't steal it, but if I take the bread and pay for it, that's a business transaction.
And this is exactly the point. If you don't do it, then you're breaking the law. This is exactly the point. Okay, but it doesn't matter. We've had a couple of rules or laws or whatever you want to call them. Yeah. Okay, it doesn't matter. 106, you can ask to be forgiven by this kind God. Now, it doesn't specify for what. Okay, it just assumes that you've done things wrong and you can ask for forgiveness and repent.
But you must know what you've done wrong. So in order to understand what you've done wrong and to understand what wrong is, you must have rules to understand what you've done, if it's right or wrong or not.
Okay, you couldn't do it before the recitation or the revelation or whatever was complete because you didn't have a complete set of rules. And even then you couldn't know because you didn't speak the language. And even then you couldn't know because it's not in a way that you could understand it. So you need to wait for the tafsirs and you need to wait for the hadiths anyway. So only the people like 1,000 years ago were able to fully understand what their God wants from them. So for the 300,000 prior years, no, there was no chance.
So that means Muhammad was lying when he said that the first 3 generations of Islam are the purest.
Yeah, of course, yes. How would they know anything?
But you just said, right, that you have to have the hadith to understand the law. So that means Islam is based on the Quran and the hadith. So you're not a Muslim unless you obey the Quran and the hadith. If you don't obey the 2, right, or if you obey the 2 of them, you're a Muslim. But if you're a Quranist, you're not a Muslim then, which is the point I've been trying to make all along.
Yeah, but I agree with that. It's just that for me, only allowing the Quran is a more honest version of Islam, because you're not having okay. Look, in the hadiths are something like how much? 27,000 different sentences, I think, or 28. I can't remember how many. It depends on how many you include as being sahih and how many not.
And how many are repeated.
well, even if you take just Sahih and Bukhari, you're still looking at something like over 10,000 sentences, all right? So that's more than what the Quran is with just over 6,000. Now, if you take the Sunnah and you include the Sirah with it, then you have so much text, so much material that anything that you claim, you can somehow substantiate by one of the sentences in the Hadith or the Sirah or whatever. So this makes it useless, because at the end of the day, and this is what we're seeing today, it's the interpretation, the various interpretations by the various scholars who are being argued for and against each other. So in other words, a Muslim today is not arguing according to the Quran or the Hadith. He is arguing what the scholars are saying, because he doesn't really know what the Quran says, because hardly any Muslim has actually read the Quran. And it's impossible for a Muslim to have read every single Hadith. So,
yeah. Do you not find it strange though, Stops, that when you consider this, that during his lifetime, from the moment he received his first revelation to the moment that he died, bearing in mind there were periods in his life where he didn't get a revelation for many months, and in between months as well. So you get a revelation, then it wouldn't happen for a little while, then you got a revelation, wouldn't happen for a while. That this guy, between sleeping, between eating, between going to war, between shagging 9 of his wives, well, 8 and 1 child, which was rape, so that wasn't sex, that was rape, doing all that in his life, that this guy had the time to receive the Quran and the Hadith as well. This guy has accomplished quite a lot in such a short period of time.
well, if you take the Hadith,
has anybody ever tried to quantify this down? Like, let's look at 20 years, minus, say, X amount of time for eating, minus X amount of time for war, minus X of time for sleeping, and see what we have left, to see what he accomplished, and see if we can mathematically work out whether he could have done that much in that period of time.
well, somebody worked out that he must have come up with, I think it's 10 Hadiths a minute, if you take all the Hadiths.
And so somebody's done that. Wow, that's amazing. Somebody's done that. Wow. There I was thinking I'd thought of something original.
Sorry.
10 hadiths a minute. Wow.
I think it was 10. Okay. Ask to be forgiven, and don't protect those. Now it's getting quite wild. Okay. The next couple of, don't protect those who are different than you. In other words, those who are traitors. So in other words, what the Quran is doing here is saying that anybody who does not believe what you believe, who does not think the way that you think, is automatically a traitor. And that's quite harsh, I think. Then 108, atheists can't hide from this God. So in other words, it says, I think if I remember correctly, it says that no matter where you are, God is going to be with you. So I'm sorry, what good is that? Come on, guys. I don't believe that gods exist. So how can, what kind of a statement is this? This is how ignorant whoever wrote the Quran is, that they just assume that somebody who has different gods or no gods or whatever, this is going to impress them. How does that impress me if somebody tells me, watch it, there's a dragon outside the window? No, there isn't. It's ridiculous. Okay, and then it says, don't protect. In other words, don't protect those who are different. In other words, the traitors, and don't protect those atheists. Those I'm substituting non-believers or disbelievers or whatever as atheists. All right. And then in 110, well, don't do anything. Just bloody well submit. Come on, you know that you want to. Just go and follow Islam, and then you're done. You don't need to worry about anything else. But if you don't, well, you better submit, or else. So this subtle change of tone. Where don't protect atheists, because remember, they're bad, and if they are bad, you are good, because if you think that you're bad, if you can be good, because if you submit, then you can be good. And if you don't submit, well, then you're going to get punished. Then it says scapegoating is bad. In other words, blaming others for something. Then you can't change the faith of a Muslim because there's a book. You see, it's not there yet. What the point you've just made, it's not there yet. But in 20 years, there's going to be a book, and then you can't change the faith of a Muslim because there's this book. So, then atheists are useless unless they are talking about charity, kindness, or harmony. And then again, believe, or else. And then God forgives everything except, and I put this into bold, because this is a straight contradiction with others, because it doesn't, this merciful God is merciful with everything except when it comes to believing other gods exist. So this is a really, really, really important sentence in the Quran, because it shows that this God is a hypocrite. It says that, yes, I'm merciful, I'm all loving, I'm the Rahman, and so on. So I'm the one who's going to forgive everything, but I'm not going to forgive if you go and worship others. So don't bloody well tell me you forgive everything if you don't. And then, okay, this sentence I don't quite understand. I don't know, maybe Rob can look at this and maybe you've
Which one
got
is
a
that?
different idea. 117.
Okay, let's just bring that up.
Because it says they, I don't know who they is now. Is it the non-believers? Is it the believers? Is it pagans? Is it, I don't know who's they now. And they worship females instead. So it seems that they are pagans and they
Yes.
worship Satan.
In the Yusuf Ali translation, it renders it as pagans. Right, now, bear in mind, right, bear this in mind, because this will come out in the future when the satanic verses comes out about the Alat Manat and forget the other third part of that unholy trinity.
Alutza.
Aluza, that's it.
Yeah, this is, I don't know, this sentence and the next one, I don't really understand it, because I don't know who is what and where. I think it's about pagans. I think because some of the translators make it out as pagans, some translators don't, some say it's this, everybody has a different opinion here. Okay, then 118 says, who was shunned, and they who were shunned, or they who were admonished or something, they are vowing revenge. The revenge is that they are misleading those who believe it. Those are the losers. And then what we need to remember here, that this is one sentence. This is just an example. It says they are the losers. They are the ones who are changing the nature of God. And this changing nature is used as a miracle of DNA modification by some Muslims, because it mentions changing the nature of Allah. And then if you look at 5103, it says God has not instituted the rights of Bahira, Sabi, and Fatir and Ruhani. So this is, if somebody actually worries about this, what does it mean about slitting the ear of a cow? Well, this is a sign that the pagans used to use as a sign of animal sacrifice. So what they used to do is slit the ear of a cow, for example, and this would no longer be milked or used or anything, because it was assigned as a sort of a living sacrifice to one of the gods. And then you were not allowed to touch this animal. It could be a camel, could be a goat, could be a camel, whatever, a cow. And you'd notify, or you'd make that known to the others by slitting the ear. So that's what this is all about. And then finally, 120, Satan makes false promises. Oh, he's mentioned here 3 times, but I left it out because there's just details. Questions, comments, others?
Yeah, not so much on that, but we have this fellow who's just talking complete nonsense here.
Atheist nation. What is an atheist nation?
Presumably he's talking about China. It wasn't a nation, was it?
So there is a nation which is an atheist. A nation which is, I don't know. Okay, this brought us death. A nation brought us death. Who's us?
I think he's talking about the atheist nation of China. China ate the bat soup, and the bat soup has brought us death.
Atheists
By
stop
coronavirus.
Atheists stop freaking eating everything, including bat soup. You are batshit crazy, let me tell you that much.
Can I just add something on this. What people don't seem to understand when you go back to why the Chinese eat everything, there is a reason what took place is because of the man-made famines by Mao Zedong that starved out many millions in China, which is why China got this, if you like, reputation of eating anything, because they were so starving, they literally got to the point where they did eat anything. That is the historical context why the Chinese eat cats, bats, rats, or snakes, or whatever. They were that hungry by the man-made enforced famines by Mao Zedong. And anybody that's ever studied anything about democide would know that Mao Zedong, post World War II and Hitler, has probably murdered more of his own people, which is what democide is, than any other person in the history of mankind. So I wouldn't laugh at people like the Chinese, whose culture is that they eat anything. Their culture is based on the biggest mass murder in human history that forced its own people to eat things like that. And so Stalin isn't that far behind with about 40 million people, where in the Ukraine, as an example, they dug up dead bodies to eat the flesh because of the man-made famines or man-made enforced famines in the post World War II Russian Caucasus.
Mm-hmm. And just as a by the by, if a farmer catches a virus from I don't know, an animal, so maybe the bat bit a cow or chicken or something, and then this virus got transmitted, and then because the farmer was a chicken farmer and he then gets infected and he happens to be in China, this does not mean that China is now bringing death. It just so happens that a virus was transmitted to a human being which flourished, which was able to survive, because normally a virus that comes from an animal cannot survive. But
which
this
is
one
interesting.
does.
Which is interesting because this guy's probably a follower of a prophet who says it's okay to drink camel piss.
Anyway, so it's a bit stupid to say, yeah, this is the result of intent or something like this. But I know there's so many conspiracy theories around this, but yeah, I don't know. People love these little things. Okay. Any comments on this? Any questions? Anything?
I don't see anything in the chat.
Okay. Then what I will do, I will promptly go to the miracle claims. This I can also make bigger, I reckon.
Ah, yes.
Here you go.
These vague claims.
Okay, so what I've done is I've taken a page which is the prophecies of Prophet Muhammad, proofs of prophethood series. Okay, and we can see it's relatively recent, and this is called prophecies. So this is going to tell us the prophecies of Prophet Muhammad that he made. Now, the funny thing is, the first one that we see is very familiar because it's from the Quran. So this is not a prophecy that Muhammad made. This is a prophecy, apparently, that Muhammad received from his God because this is part of revelation. And the funny thing is, they now attribute this to Muhammad. Now, Muslims will normally say, Muhammad did not write the Quran. These people are saying, yes, he did. Now, the Yaqeen Institute, it rings a bell, but I can't remember. Is this from this Yusuf Estesh, or is this from this Asadullah, or is this because the Yaqeen Institute rings a bell? Somebody,
I think it's the Asadullah fella. Isn't that over in Indonesia, Malaysia, somewhere?
in Malaysia, because I think it is. I think it's this Kevin guy, Asadullah, who runs this.
Or he's part of it. But yeah.
Or founded it, or something. I can't remember what it is. So this is so weird that somebody will come and say, these are the prophecies of Muhammad, and then go to the Quran. And this is something we've seen. The Byzantines have been defeated in the nearest land. What is the nearest land compared to what? Compared to Mars? but they, after the defeat, will triumph within 3 to 9 years. Well, that's a very and
That the
please
best he can do?
note, 3 to 9.
Doesn't
Now,
even
we
say
get
that in the
different
Quran, though,
things.
does it?
It's several years. It's this. So there are different interpretations of this anyway. So the funny thing is, Muslims themselves are not 100% sure of what the Quran is actually claiming. And we've already analyzed this and seen that this is total nonsense. And then the funny thing is, they say here from 613 to 619, the Byzantines were absolutely decimated. Now, please note, the revelation of Muhammad, according to the Muslim narration, the Muslim tradition, ends in 632. In other words, there's another 10, 12, 13 years. So how can this be a prophecy if this happened during the time that Muhammad allegedly lived? So it doesn't make sense. None of this makes sense. And, this is the typical thing, what they do. Then they take Edward Gibbon. So they take somebody, a historian or somebody, well, he says this and this. So it's not me making the claim. It's somebody says this and this, but this has no, I don't know, this has no bearing on the story above. So this is quite weird that they do this. Then this is something I often hear, and this is chapter, I think it's 111. Abu Lahab is just, I don't know, Rob, were you there when this Mr. Ammar tried to tell me that there are prophecies, and this Abu Lahab was absolutely, oh no, this is where he said, you want something correct in the Quran? Well, here you have something correct, because Abu Lahab is being chastised, and he could have easily said, yes, I submit, and the whole Quran would have been wrong, and he didn't. Therefore, the Quran is right. Excuse me, you cannot use the Quran to show that the Quran is right. You have to show something by demonstrating its veracity by using outside sources. So you cannot go and use the Quran to go and try and justify or verify the Quran. But this is what they do. And this is what this idiot does. He says, okay, the Quran says, may the hands be ruined, and ruined is he, his wealth will not. You see, it's astonishing that for the next 9 years of Abu Lahab's life, despite hearing these verses being recited, the pride still kept him from a potential golden opportunity. Now, is there any outside source that mentions Abu Lahab, his life? Is there a biography of Abu Lahab? Is there anyone outside of this text, this one mention? No, there's nothing about an Abu Lahab. So this is only in the Quran. Well, here we have another prophecy, the globalization of Islam. The matter will certainly reach every place touched by night and day. There you go. This is the prophecy. Allah will cause this religion to enter it, and so on and so on. I think we've actually looked at this. This is not a prophecy. This is just wishful thinking. And that's it. There is nothing here that is specific, nothing that is precise, nothing that anybody could go and verify. And here, this is another one. Regarding the night prior to the battle of Badr, the Prophet showed us where those enemies would die. He would place his hand somewhere on the ground. This is where so-and-so will die tomorrow. Good luck verifying this. How can you bring something like this up? How can you be so ridiculously gullible, deluded, and outright stupid? You're an idiot if you come here and you say, well, Muhammad put his hand here and look, this is where they died. I mean, what is this? How is this a prophecy? How can you in any way verify this? This is crazy. Okay, next one is 6 in sequence. I don't even know this one. Count 6 signs before the hour. My death, the conquest of Jerusalem, and 2 mortal will take you. Okay, great. As the plague of sheep, then wealth be such surplus that man will be given 100 gold coins, still be unsatisfied. There will be tribulation that will not leave an Arab home without entering it, and there will be a truce between you and the Banu Ashfar. S with a dot should be, or is it Asfar? I never know what this is. So the Byzantines, anyway, which they will betray and march against you under 80 flags, and under each flag will be 12,000 soldiers. Okay, great. What does this talk about?
Yeah, well, I guess the
6.
explanation they're trying to make up is just below that, right?
Yeah, I know. But this in itself counts 6 signs before the hour. I mean, the quatrains are like so precise compared to this.
Yeah, and even
then
in
it
the
says here,
explanation underneath, yeah, was 5 years.
Jerusalem
so
was conquered 5 years after his death.
So we forget
in the year
that's
15.
not 6, but okay.
It's not. I was just going to say, how does that go with the 6 before the hour? 6 signs before the hour, followed by the plague of Amwas in the year 18, which took the lives. An unprecedented surplus of wealth was experienced in the country of Uthman as a result of conquest on every front. As a tribulation, that was okay. Counting the conquests. Okay, let's see how this fares. Bismillah, in God's name. I have been given the keys to Sham, to paradise. I can see its red palaces at this very moment. We've done this. We've done this. I have been given the keys to paradise. I can see the palaces. I've been given the key to Persia. I can see the white palace. And this is this is supposed to say that he's going to conquer all these things, these areas in whatever places. That's it. What about the other places?
Did you say he was given the keys to paradise?
Yeah.
Do you notice that with reference to that, he's repeating something that's already in the Bible? He's trying to mold himself. And this is what Jesus said to Peter. You've got the first key, or the keys have been handed to Peter, and upon you this church or congregation is going to be built. He's trying to mold himself in the image of one of the apostles there. So he's clearly trying to use the language that's already been written in other religions.
Yeah, and you see, this was one of the things that was brought up as evidence for the existence of Muhammad, because he said that I've been given the keys to paradise and things like that. But actually, Sham is not paradise. I lied. I'm wrong. Because I'm sidetracked now. Because have you heard of Maslima?
No.
That sounds familiar. Remind me.
At the time of, okay, there allegedly, again, nobody knows if this is true, there were 4 false prophets in the Arabian Peninsula. One of them was Maslima, and he was called the false prophet because in one of the texts, it mentions the false prophet who claimed that he was given the keys to paradise. And this is where Sham is the Levant and not paradise. This was my mistake. I was on the wrong track there because it was Maslima who was given the keys to paradise, who was called the false prophet. Here, this is Muhammad given the keys to Sham, and Sham is the region of what we call the Levant today. Are there red palaces there? I don't know. Given the keys to Persia, Madan's white palace. Okay, maybe there was a white palace there. I don't know. But again, if this is a prophecy, we said it must be precise, it must be unique, it must be da da da. So we have these 5 different criteria, and none of these is being fulfilled here. So this is not a prophecy, this is wishful thinking. Same. Security will prevail. Oh, wow. There's a prophecy that says security will prevail. If you live long enough, you will see a woman travel on camelback from Al-Hira until she circles the Kaaba while not fearing anyone but Allah. And if you live long enough, the treasures of Khosrows, the son of Hormuz, will be conquered. Khosrows, okay. Saying this, if you use Farsi, this is not this is swear words. The son of Hormuz, and if you live long enough, you will see a man walking out, hand filled with gold or silver, seeking someone to accept it, but will not find anyone to accept it. Okay, can somebody tell me where the prophecy is?
Yeah, your guess is as good as anybody's.
You will see what the Prophet said regarding a manhunt. For historians confirm that the inability to find someone eligible to accept charity took place during the reign of Umar al-Khalif.
Oh dear.
Come on. Can somebody, I mean, come on. Is it just me, or does this reek of sheer desperation? Or is this me?
Yeah,
come on.
They have a global audience, right? So anything that sounds remotely plausible, and even that's being charitable, people will jump on, right?
To be honest, I'm not even smiling. It's just pathetic. I'm listening to
It
this.
is, isn't it?
You know, sometimes you listen to something, it's like, it's not even worth a comment. It's not even worth a comment. I mean, what can you possibly say? It's pathetic. This is what Muslims take seriously as prophecy. You can understand when it's things like this, you know, prophecy. Prophecy should be the biggest thing that if you're trying to promote a religion, that should be the main course. But the fact, you know, the thing that promotes, because it's the one thing that is sort of outside of the sphere of time that doesn't require any kind of interpretation. Yet Muslims rely on pseudoscientific claptrap more than they rely on prophecy. What does that tell you?
Well, the guy calls himself a prophet. How is this? How is anything that we've seen so far a prophecy? It's not. So
It's not.
why would somebody who doesn't have, I mean, come on, if there would be like really a prophecy, I mean, you can be sure that we would have come across it by now, right? But there is nothing. So why are Muslims still insisting that the title prophet is justified? You can't justify it. You have to admit it is not there. So the last emperors, when this guy died, there will be no after him. And when Caesar dies, there will be no Caesar after him. Oh, that's wrong. And I swear by the one in whose hand is Muhammad's soul, the treasure will be spent in the path of God. Okay. All right. I'm not going to guess anymore. Imam Shafi and Khattabi explained that this meant there would never be another Caesar in Greater Syria, nor any other Caesar in Iraq. Indeed, who rose to power during the first in effect became the 38th and final king of the Sassanid Empire. The final Caesar during the Prophet's life was Heraclius. Byzantium did in fact collapse and lose Christendom's holy site Jerusalem during his reign. After those individuals, neither empire maintained any presence in those two regions. What? Where does it say the final Caesar during the Prophet's life was Heraclius?
Yeah, I don't know.
Just on this subject of Heraclius, isn't one of the things that Islam seems to shout about is the letter that Muhammad is supposed to have sent to Heraclius inviting him to Islam?
Yeah.
Well, the interesting thing is with that is why would anybody bother wasting their time to write a letter and yet not write down the Quran? I never, you know, why would, I mean, the word of Allah, you could not be bothered to write, but you wrote a letter asking, I don't believe the letter's real. I believe the letter's a forgery and a fake.
Yeah.
But for those who are Muslims or listeners to the show that believe there's any credibility in this letter, why would Muhammad or his followers not have written down the Quran? Well, they had the means to. Like, this guy's writing letters, so he's got a pen, he's got paper, he's educated, so he's alphanumeric, and yet he doesn't write down the Quran. That is something that you need to answer.
A whisper in his daughter's ear. Welcome, my dear daughter. Okay, now this says Gabriel used to review the Quran with me one time each year, and he reviewed it twice with me this year. I do not see this except that my time has arrived, and you will be the first in my family to catch up with me. Fatima cried, are you not pleased to be the queen of the believers in paradise? Okay. No, I'm not going to worry. Nawawi points out this is actually two prophecies in one.
Now,
The
what?
first is that he foretold in this sickness. He foretold in this sickness. I think what they mean is he foretold his sickness because he reviewed the Quran once and now he reviewed it twice. So if that happens, that must mean that I'm about to die. It doesn't tell me when, how, where, from what. No, just because the guy came twice, this means I need to die soon. I mean, this is the guy who said that the last hour will come. It will be there before the young guy will die. Okay, he was totally wrong. And here he says, well, I will die because now this guy, Gabriel, has been there twice. I'm going to die. When am I going to die? Well, I don't know, but I'm going to die. Oh, boy. So the first is that he foretold this sickness and not in any other before it, that this time had come, and that the young Fatima in her early 20s at that time would die before any other member of the family. Well, that's bullshit. Because his sons already died. So it's also nonsense. Longest arm, Aisha narrates, the fastest of you in catching up with me will be the one with the longest arm among you. Okay, does anybody want to hazard a guess what the prophecy is? No. Due to that statement, Aisha reports that his wives used to speculate and even measure against the wall which wife had the longest arm.
There's something else here. I've just listening to you that I've just come to realize. When you look at the biblical prophecies, whether you accept them or not, they're pointing about a person or a specific period of time. For example, some will say there are prophecies in the Bible pertaining to Jesus. Then there are some that will say there are prophecies in the Bible pertaining to a period called the last days. Fine. They're specific about two different things. What is the point of the Quranic prophecies? What are they pointing to? Where are they leading us? And another thing to consider is let's just assume for a moment that these are prophecies, and let's just assume for argument's sake that all of them are real and they've come true. So all the Quranic prophecies, we can say, yes, they're in there, they come true. 5,000 years from now, what would be the point? What does that do? Where is the benefit? Where is what do they produce in us? There's got to be a reason why those prophecies are there. So what is the product or the end game of the prophecy?
No, I don't. I think you're seeing it the wrong way around. They're not prophecies at all.
I know that. I'm
pieces of text which are being used, which are being abused. It's quote mining, where the people are saying, oh, look, here's a sentence. And if you twist the sentence, then it could mean, look at this here. The fastest of you catching up will be the one with the longest arm. Now, this is the longest arm means the most charitable. So in other words, you take a sentence, you go and reattribute it, you go and reassign it to something that you want to show, and then you use that as confirmation that whatever is in the Quran, whatever is in the Hadith, whatever is being said about something is actually correct. So this is deception to the highest degree. This is propaganda. This is showing people, look, we are the greatest, bestest, most wonderful, most everything, as is claimed in the Quran. And this is true, you see, because here she has the longest arm. She is the most charitable amongst all of us. And this is where all the Muslim miracle claims, the scientific claims, all these things come in, because they need to somehow justify their belief, because Islam is incredibly weak. That's how they do it. So, and I'm sorry to say, the same is true for the Bible. If you look at the Bible prophecies, they are just as unspecific and just as vague, and this is here.
If you want that, that's a separate discussion, and if you want that, but that's not what I'm trying to say. You know, we're talking about the Quran here. You don't want me to start doing apologetics. The Quran, I was using the points, though. I said, even if you accept it or not, those prophecies specific about a period of time or about a specific person. I'm not asking you to accept it. I was trying to say, if you like, they are specific about a person or a period. The Quran, what is the point of them? They're not pointing to a person. They're not pointing to anything specific. So 5,000 years from now, let's assume that they're telling the truth and that these are prophecies. What is the benefit of the prophecy if they come true?
It's just confirmation. It's just
5,000 years from now. What does it prove 5,000 years from now? It doesn't prove
It's
anything.
just confirmation. It's just it's ear candy. Just so that people hear something that they like that says, you see, look, it shows that it's true. Look, it's true. You can see there, it says it. And people will see it and they will believe it because that's what it says. So open it, give him the glad tidings of paradise. There you go. Here's the prophecy.
True. And then 5,000 years from now, for instance, we're looking at the Quran. There's a prophecy. It's come true. Okay, what of it? Where's the relevance
It's
in my life?
confirmation that everything you see in the Quran and the Hadith is correct.
But it's irrelevant, though, in my period of time, 5,000 years from now.
No, it is just as relevant today as it is in 5,000 years, because this is the confirmation that what it says is still correct.
Okay,
Because
but
Muhammad was a prophet, because he said, open it for him and give him the glad tidings of paradise. And this is what it said.
I see your point as somebody that doesn't believe in prophecy, but I do believe in prophecy. I'm trying to understand from the point of view of somebody who does believe in prophecy. And
there lies your problem.
That's the point I'm trying to make. Thank you.
I'm sorry, but I can't tell you anything else. Okay. Be firm wood for you, none than the Prophet. Both attained martyrdom for being assassinated during the respective caliphates. I mean, what this is showing that the perfection that is always claimed. There were Muslims today where they are saying exactly what you mentioned, Thunderous, that the first 3 generations were the most perfect. Well, they bloody well killed their own kings. Okay? So this is how perfect it was for the people, that they killed the leaders by being assassinated during their respective caliphates. Exactly. So please don't come to me with this bullshit story that everything in those days was so perfect and this was the pure Islam and everything. No, it was not. People were as unconvinced as they are today.
In fact, you know, when Muhammad died, the first thing that happened was the Ridda Wars, the War of the Apostates.
Yeah, then everybody left, exactly. And the same thing would happen if people were not so afraid. Yeah. Okay, inevitable fighting. Okay, should I read all this? No. So is this, and I asked him, not the aggression in another indeed has gathered the earth from me until it saw its east and the west. You cannot see the east and the west. This is infinity. This is a real infinity on this planet, because if I tell you go west, you will carry on walking until forever. You will never reach west. The kingdom of my nation will reach whatever has been gathered from me, and I've been giving 2 treasures, the red and the white, and the Lord that he did destroy was for family that you not empower against the external of the night, and my laws. Nah, come on, this is nonsense. Tensions among the Prophet's household. There will be an issue between you and Aisha. Abu Rafi reported that the Prophet said there will be an issue between you and Aisha. And this is, well, there you go. This was a prophecy. Fate of Ammar, I don't know, they're getting worse and worse. Ali suppressing the Kharajat. This is repairing the rift.
It doesn't even meet the criteria, right? That Muslims themselves put up.
Yeah. This is just random gibberish. This is, and this is look, in an explicit hadith about the forms of governance. Prophethood will remain amongst you for as long as Allah wishes. How is that explicit? This is the opposite. This is vague nonsense. Then Allah will remove it whenever He wishes to remove it. What does it specify? It specifies absolutely nothing. So don't tell me this is an explicit hadith about the forms of governance. It will remain for as long as Allah wishes it to remain. Okay? I'm being very specific. It will reign for as long as it rains. Come on. Asma sends a tyrant home. There you have this on the date with destiny. All right, preempting the questioner, unforgettable. And okay, I'm not going to go through this. Look at this. This is only halfway through So this carries on and on.
Maybe
This now.
post a link for people who want to go and look at this and lose some brain cells.
Right. This is the link. I'll put this here in the chat for both in Facebook and in YouTube, so that people, if they want it, they can go to the Yakin Institute and look at this nonsense. Never thought you would speak. Conclusion. For the sake of brevity, we will settle for this set of verified, this set of verified prophecies of God's final prophet Muhammad. I mean,
It's absolutely delusional.
But then it's in the same bracket as pseudoscientific claptrap, verified by scientists. You know, it's in the same ilk. It's from the same menu.
yeah, but this is crazy. This is pure, sheer deception.
Of course it is. Of course it is.
How
But then
can
it's
you tell anybody this is a verified prophecy? It's neither a prophecy nor is it verified. It
Yeah,
is noteworthy. Sorry?
The thing is, Islam is a lie. So what do you expect people to do but to lie to defend it? There is no, you can't defend the lie with truth any more than you can defend the truth with a lie. If Islam is a lie and the premise is a lie and the foundation of Islam is a lie, all you can ever do is use lies to defend it. So
Yeah,
what are you
why do Muslims not see this?
we've had this conversation before. I mean, even with the apostate prophet when he came on the show, they probably do, but it's fear. It's fear. This is what I say. Islam is more than just religion. It's the community as well. You know, it's the expectation of the culture.
It is noteworthy, however, that although the Prophet described so many portents of the end times, he never specified an exact date or time. Rather, he would, on multiple occasions, recite to people the likes of these verses from the Quran. None in the heavens and earth knows the unseen except Allah. They do not perceive when they will be resurrected. Some might argue that this too constitutes another prophecy, namely that every prediction about the final hour, which countless people have made throughout history, will be mistaken. Any fair-minded person who considers the staggering number of these prophecies that reflects that we ourselves 50 years ago could never have predicted the events he predicted must be impressed by them. Given the number and precision of these prophecies, they must be seen for what they are, irrefutable proofs of his prophethood. Unbelievable.
But then they talk, their conversation, the way they reason. How is it any different to the way Muhammad spoke about his wonderful speech and passion about his miracles and that he was a prophet of God? You can see that the Muslims have taken the template of Muhammad and have used the same template when trying to defend the Quran and Islam.
Okay, one thing I did is if you go to Wiki Islam, they have a whole page on Islamic prophecies. And this I recommend to anybody who's interested in the topic, because what they do is they give you each one of these prophecies. And by now we know a lot of these, all right? I've never heard electric light bulbs. Anyway, so the army ant and technology. So this rapid transfer of things. So there's a couple of these so-called prophecies, and but now I'm curious. I want to see this. Where was this? The use of electricity and electric light bulbs. So in other words, this is something that was foretold. Okay, and we made a fount of molten copper flow out. Okay, this is electricity. One of Allah's blessings to Prophet Sulaiman was a fount of molten copper. This can be understood in several senses. By the use of melted copper, it may be referring to the existence of an advanced technology that employed electricity. We know that copper is one of the best metals for conducting electricity and heat, and thus constitutes the basis of the electrical industry, which uses much of the copper produced in the world. The explosion flow out may indicate that electricity can be used in many fields.
Yeah, it's just incredible.
Let's see the electric light bulbs. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I think this is a case that the light's on, but no one's at home.
God is the light of the heavens and earth. The parable of his light is that of a niche in which is a lamp. The lamp is enclosed in glass. The glass is like a pear-like planet, lit with the oil of a blessed tree, the olive, neither of the east nor the west, whose oil appears to light up even though fire touches it not. Light upon light, God guides to his light whomever he wills. God sets forth parables for the people. God knows all things. We believe there are implications in the Quran indicating certain important inventions that were to take place in the future for mankind. At the time of the Prophet, when these inventions were beyond human imagination, people could not have imagined them. How could it be possible to explain to these people what electricity and the electric light bulb were? Well, it's very easy, I can do it. The verse above seems to hint at electricity and the light bulb. However, I'm not claiming that this is its only significance. It is certain that the scope of it must be larger than that. While the verse points to a fundamental issue in referring to light, it also seems to have the connotation of an electric bulb and electricity.
Yeah.
Air traffic system we've done, extraterrestrial life we've done, books published and spread we've done, women's rights we've done, rapid transfer of things we've done, smell I haven't done. Image transmission. Image transmission, in other words, television. He who possessed knowledge of the book said, I will bring to you before your glance returns to you. And when he saw it standing firmly, he said, this is part of my Lord's favor to test me. Okay. I think, yeah. Okay. Does anybody want to see anything, any one of these?
I think we can always go and have a look, isn't it? I mean, at this stage, it just becomes comical and sad, really.
Yeah.
Not much else to say, but I think it's a good way to sort of close off the theme for the month with things that defy how a human brain can really accept this sort of stuff. But it's what you've always said, right? Some, if not more than some Muslims, are taught what to think and not how to think, and that just creates a brain that will accept any nonsense or will make up stuff to retroactively fit things again to try and bolster the belief. And all you have to do is peek under the hood, and it all sort of falls apart. It's like quicksand.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, but this is crazy. But this is really, really crazy. How people expect to be taken seriously if you see this level of stupidity.
Well, it's hard to explain, really. Other than what we've just said. All right.
Sometimes there's silence is the only response you can give in these situations. If I don't know if that makes any sense to anyone. Sometimes when you have nothing to say is the response that you can make. And for me, I'm struggling to find anything to say here about what you've just been saying about the Islamic prophecies. It's like, really? It's the only word I can think of. People actually believe this?
Yeah.
Was I really brought
Marijana, this is an excellent point. This is such an excellent point. Muslims couldn't live their lives by true Sharia. And that's why in the 50 plus Muslim majority countries, none have full Sharia because it simply does not work. Exactly. Because if Sharia would work, they would have implemented it. But you can't implement Sharia because it's nonsense. And this is exactly the nonsense that we see here. Muslims coming to us and saying, listen, you need to take us seriously because we have Muhammad who spoke about image transmission. How could he know that one day we will have image transmission? And people will convert. They will join the club, join the group because they are so impressed that Muhammad knew about image transmission. And this is the sentence that I saw. I mean, if you have somebody else read the Quran for you, you become a Muslim. If you read it yourself, you become an atheist. Because it's only when you listen to what others tell you, if you listen to what others explain to you here, and it doesn't matter which one of these you take, they're all stupid, they're all ridiculous. But if somebody comes to you, especially when you are gullible, when you're impressionable, when you are somebody who wants to have he wants to be amazed, and you tell him, look, there's an old book here, and in this old book, you have things which the people couldn't possibly know. Look here, it says this, and this, of course, refers to the transmission of images. And because it refers to the transfer of images which they couldn't know, this is a very clear sign that what we are doing here, we're talking about a science-based belief system. It's not based on faith, it's based on science. Everything here is true. It can be verified. You can test it. Here are the things. I can show you all these things which were already in this book 1400 years ago. And now you tell me that this is not miraculous? And if you're a little bit gullible, you will think, oh my God, this is amazing. You don't check. If you don't have critical thinking ability, you will not check this. If you are not a skeptic, you will not check. You will just accept it, take it in and say, okay, great, wonderful. Where do I sign?
Yeah.
Wow.
So I wonder if there's anything else in the chat there, if there's any questions, any responses, any comments on the
All right,
thing
guys,
about
we've been talking
prophecies.
now for a month about prophecies.
Yeah.
We have not found a
Can you hear me?
single
Yeah.
prophecy. So can we now go to questions? Is there anybody in the chat that wants to know anything about prophecies? Is there any Muslim who is maybe listening to this and thinks they have something that would constitute a prophecy? Is there anything else that we can do for you? Because otherwise we're going to have a short show today, because there's no point in extending this. It gets silly. That's it.
Yeah, and since I'm on a water cleanse, I'm going to get an early night. So I don't think I'll be going to Discord. I don't know if you guys may want to go there.
I don't think
No, I'm
there's
on a
anything.
brandy cleanse, so I can't make it.
Well, I was there last time, and we just chatted for 10 minutes and realized there's nothing much to talk about. All right, ladies, gents, and others, no questions, no comments, no nothing. I see everybody is just as underwhelmed as we are. All right, let me give you the hadith of the week. Oh, no. Oh, shit. This is an old one. The Prophet said, if a housefly falls in the drink of anyone, he should dip it in the drink, for one of its wings has a disease and the other one has a cure for the disease. Okay, I'll give you another one, So there you go. Oh, this one's interesting. End times. Narrated Ibn Abbas, the Prophet said, when you eat, do not wipe your hands until you have licked them or had it licked by somebody else.
Well, how's that supposed to stop the spread of coronavirus then?
Yeah. Oh, sorry, I skipped one. The Prophet said, you will meet Allah barefoot, naked, walking on feet, and uncircumcised. Guys, please don't tell me that there is anything magnificent or anything amazing or anything wondrous in here. It's not. It's silly. Oh, boy. Beach, you have a dirty mind. I'm supposed to be the dirty old man here. All right, ladies, gents, thank you very much. We will see each other. Oh, hang on. Do we have a theme for next month yet? Any suggestions? There was one suggestion. I forgot what it was. Shit. And I said, yeah, we can do it.
Maybe
because
something
one
like
or two where I said, no, it's not with it. Say again?
One we could do that would be endless, really, is interpretations. How does one interpret? That's one idea. But again, if you have ideas in the chat.
Is not interpretations related to the Arabic language?
Well, I mean, interpretations even in English, right? So if you read the English translations, even they have differing ideas, and some of the verses are translated by Muslims themselves in a variety of different ways.
Yeah, I think that'd be a good one to do. Interpretations, because that's what was it Muhammad, whatever his name is how the translators have interpreted the words. So he doesn't use a translation of the Quran.
Who's that? You mean
He uses a dictionary. No, Muhammad he came on the show a couple of times. I think it's Somalia.
Oh, Ahmed, you mean Ahmed?
It's Ahmed. Okay, sorry.
Yeah. No, he's gone down that route. I'll try and get Shia Isa as well, because he feels like there is one interpretation and he's got the right one, and everybody else is wrong. And obviously what he could do is then present his arguments as to why it is, right? He does the same thing. He goes to the what do you call it? The corpus, right? So he goes to the root words to look things up. I mean, we had the discussion, was it today, yesterday, whenever, happened to pop on, and we had a discussion. He's a full supporter of evolution, and it's entirely consistent with the Quran. So
oh yeah.
No, the whole thing with common ancestry, everything fully accepts that, and is baffled by how any Muslim could not accept evolution in its entirety. I suggested he have a conversation with somebody like Sabur, so that Muslims can hear both sides, because obviously I think evolution is true. I think he's got a tough time, as I pointed out to him, to try and explain that in the Quran, but he suggests that that it is, and he's got the verses and it's clear, right? So
yeah, but I have heard Abdul Rahim Green say that as well, that evolution is consistent with the Quran.
Well, I think it depends on which version, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Because a lot of them will, not a lot of them, some of them will accept common ancestry except for humans. Now, Shia Isa, for example, accepts that humans are in fact a common descent, that there was no miracle, that they weren't created in the sense of out of these objects directly. So what he's suggesting is that it was, the microbial life. That's what it really refers to. It's not that suddenly, poof, they came into existence 6 or 10,000 or 100,000 years ago, but indeed that's what it refers to, the tree of life type of thing. And he says there's multiple verses in there, and I played sort of devil's advocate with him and suggested that, and he said, why would one of his things was, why would God create a human that looks so much like animals, right? That looks so in common with animals, if it weren't for the fact that obviously God had a hand in evolution, and that man was in a sense an animal, but an advanced version of an animal. And I suggest that was a test, right? So it's a test of Allah, so that man can see that he's a miracle, but make him very close to animals. But the test is, from a Muslim point of view, the test is to show that in fact, it's that man is special, and even though it looks like he's that, really the test is that he's not. He's something very special, and is in fact different, and was created specially. And he sort of laughed, but I didn't. I was listening for the substantive response to that, because I was playing devil's advocate, and I didn't really hear it. So that's again just an example of an interpretation that he feels, and almost no other Muslim that I've ever heard of. But then again, he doesn't think that any Sunni Muslims are Muslims anyway. But I've never heard a Muslim fully accept evolution with common ancestry for human beings. So he's the only one I've heard of. Or I lied, there might be one in Pakistan, wasn't it? Stops as well. There was some fellow, some Muslim of some sort in Pakistan or somewhere like that, who was debating one of Ayun Yaya's people online. I saw it at one point.
No, but the one we had on the show was Dr. Osama. He was an imam in London.
Okay.
And he was shunned by Muslims because he propagated the theory of evolution.
Yeah, that's why I say we've got to be clear on what do they actually propagate, because if they're propagating common ancestry for everything but humans, then Muslims might be more open to that. If they're including humans in that, well, then humans are another animal, just maybe a special version of an animal, and Muslims won't be receptive to that. And I think that's hard.
Yeah, and he does that exactly.
Yeah, but I mean,
okay,
that's just
thinking clearly. What was it? How about a month on Sharia? Let me add this here, Sharia, because I'm still collecting. Because I've got Arabic, then I've got supremacy, hate, intolerance. I've got apologetics, anthropomorphism, interpretation, and now Sharia.
I think one of the other things, especially with apologetics, that could be interesting, and maybe that goes on longer than a month, because we can do some videos, right? We can break down some videos and do some pieces on, especially in Speaker's Corner, or indeed some of the debates. This young fellow, Cosmic Skeptic, has debated Subur and hijab, and so they've sort of come up with their things. They're not understanding certain things. So the apologetics is a wide field, but obviously focused on the Islamic view of apologetics.
Yeah, exactly. And random, I'm sorry, if you go and come up with really dishonest stuff like this, you are not doing a favor for Islam, really, because you can't tell people they can go to Mecca. You cannot do that and then come up with this really lame thing. All you have to do is accept, not accept, but accept Islam. This is exactly the kind of lame, dishonest tactics that people really can't tolerate and can't stomach, which makes you look so desperate and so lame. It really is stupid. Don't do that. Why do you want to make Islam look foolish? There's a lot of very intelligent Muslims out there. Why do you have to make it look bad? Really, I don't get it. Okay, so I have Sharia. What about any other suggestions? A month on Islam's biggest clowns. Ali Dawa, Hamza sources. You could go on.
Yeah, well, I think that the point, that's probably not so useful.
Apologetics.
Muslims will just sidestep that and say, hey, they don't speak for us and stuff like that. So I think targeting individual people, probably not that useful. More, let's keep it to the Quran, the Hadith, what Muslims actually, rather than certain people, although they can be examples of certain, on certain topics we're covering. But I think targeting directly people is not going to be that helpful.
It's like, sometimes I think I'd like to have a scale of really the lack of intelligence by the different apologists in Speaker's Corner. Because I'm not sure whether Ali Dawa or Adnan Rashid will be at the top. Really, I don't know. Do you know what I'm saying? Maybe on Sharia and the effect on non-believers. Okay, I've written down Sharia. So if we go and look at Sharia, then this will include the effect on non-believers. Definitely, you have to. There's no way that you can ignore that. So Sharia is a highly interesting topic. We've had an entire show on Sharia before, but let's spend time on it. Yeah, because there's a lot of material there. Absolutely. All right, then. I don't know. Should we meet during the week and discuss this, or should we just order this, or should we just take one? Should we vote on this, or how should we do this?
I think we can chat offline.
Yeah,
Because I really have no idea. All right, guys. Then let's leave it at that. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for being on the panel with me, because I was actually scared I was going to be alone today, and I really wouldn't have been able to do that. And thank you to everybody in the chat. Thank you very much for being here. It's great to see you people participate and contribute as well. See you next week. See you next Friday.
Stay safe, stay indoors, and we'll see you next week.
goodbye,
Wash your hands. Keep your fingers out of your face. Go and masturbate. Take them out of the face.
I'm not going to endorse what Stop said. I'm just going to do a simple stay safe and have a safe where you can speak to each other next week.
All right. Good night, guys.
Bye-bye. There's enough wankers out there. They're called Muslims. 1.5 billion of them.
No, don't do that. No, that's not nice.